In Enter John, is John in the nominative or accusative case? This question made me think about the structure of the sentence. I'm familiar with the expression enter Michael / exit John to represent Michael's or John's entry or exit, respectively, to a dramatic stage, and its metaphorical use. Is this a real sentence, or a sentence fragment? Either way, should John be treated as the subject of the sentence, and put in the nominative case? I realize that this makes little practical difference as English words are not typically declined based on case, and exit him or enter I sounds wrong either way. However, I am curious. Initially, I had thought that exit might be the subjunctive, and that the phrase was equivalent to let John exit. But the plural of exit in stage directions is exeunt, and both exit and exeunt are present indicative in Latin.
It's probably best just to treat it as a fixed expression, rather than try and analyze in terms of it being a normal piece of syntax. Once a word or expression is interchangeable with a piece of Latin, that's a good sign not to get too bogged down with an analysis in terms of normal syntax. I really don't think there's much mileage in trying to analyze in terms of subjunctive, for example. I'm actually skeptical that it's appropriate to say that English has subjunctive forms in the first place, but even if you buy into the idea that it does, it's probably appropriate to say that subjunctives, like verb forms generally, have a subject position and normal word order, something that's not obviously present in the case of enter John / John enter / enter I.
I can't point to a reference, but this seems to be a case where form comes from function. Entrances and exits are important events for actors, so enter and exit come first so that those directions are easy to spot. The characters doing the entering or exiting is the next most important piece of information, and comes next, followed by more specific information like a stage left or with bloody dagger. Anyway, in a stage direction it's always the case that the character, John, is the subject of the verb enter, and the scene is the implied object of the verb.
My interpretation is that we are looking at a nominative. Here is why. The key to the noun case lies, I believe, in the analysis of the verb inflection. One first need to acknowledge that scene directions in playtexts used to take various forms. 1. All Latin. Present indicative mood, intrat / intrant and exit / exeunt. In which case the characters are in nominative case. Present subjective mood, exit / exeunt, nominative as well. For instance, in exeunt omnes, as you note, exeunt is the third person plural of the present indicative of the verb exeo. In theory, omnes is possibly the masculine plural nominative, vocative, or accusative of omnes. Since exeunt is not an imperative, we can rule out vocative. Since exeunt is a plural, we can rule out accusative. If it were an accusative, we would have exit omnes, not exeunt omnes, some kind of their exit all. Mixed English / Latin. Present indicative mood, intreth, enters, / enter, singular plural, and exit / exeunt. For instance, enter the king. The king is a nominative case. Note that the verb is inflected as a third person singular. If we read enter John, one could interpret enter as an imperative, in which case John is a vocative. But that doesn't square up with exit, a Latin indicative. The imperative would be exi or exito, and seems awkward in the case of enter the king. There is another explanation though. I would venture that since exit is both a Latin third-person singular and an English infinitive, the enter form is a symmetric infinitive. Said otherwise, the exit started as a Latin indicative and was retained because it looked like an English infinitive. This would explain the weird mix of English and Latin. Enter is no Latin word, of course. In this case, the noun is in the nominative case. Note 1. Mariko Ichikawa, freely available, whole article. A survey of stage directions in early English Renaissance plays shows that the use of the English direction enter, presented in the imperative mood and used for either one or more characters, along with the Latin direction exit / exeunt, in the present indicative mood, was not completely established until the early or mid-1590s. Some of the earliest surviving playtexts basically employ the convention of massing the names of all the characters who appear in any given scene in one list at its opening, without the word enter or its equivalent, in imitation of the printed form of Roman comedy current in the Renaissance. Some almost exclusively use the Latin directions, intrat / intrant, in the present indicative mood, and either exit / exeunt, in the present subjective mood, or exit / exeunt. Others normally use vernacular verbs such as come in and go out, and enter and go out. In treth, enters, /enter, singular plural, and exit, /exeunt, are usually found.
I'll check it.